Hi, my name is Jennifer Reed, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a January wrap-up in which I'm going to discuss the books I read in January. Now, let's get this show on the road. The first book I read in January was A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. Let's get this started. First impressions. I picked this up in my local library as a newly bought book. I thought it was right up my alley, so I checked it out. While reading, I found it to be a very compelling read, which, while it had magic and sorcery, I felt like the true evil was Evangeline's narcissistic personality, and her gift in sorcery only made her powerful enough to get away with the things she did. Cordelia I related to as someone who was made obedient throughout my life to please my parents. I liked the switching of POVs and the slightly altered Regency era time period, which was something I've never seen before. After reading, the ending was meh. It didn't give me the final standoff vibes or worry me very much, but it did give me the type of ending I wanted for Cordelia and Hester. So what more could I really ask for? I rated A Sorceress Comes to Call 4 stars, and I will link that book down below, along with all the other books I'm going through. I read Immortal by Su Lin Tan, and I finished it on January 26th. My first impressions was that it had a very pretty cover. I'm very intrigued for the plot, and wonder how Su Lin Tan will write this. I have high hopes for the blurb alone. While reading, maybe it's because I'm good romantic, maybe I just don't really like the romance genre, but I'm finding this book painfully boring and frustrating. The constant miscommunication makes me want to rip my hair out by the root. The romance is trying its best, but I'm just not convinced by it. My first reaction to the kiss made me want to yell, and it only led to more miscommunication. After reading, I've noticed a pattern with Su Lin Tan's writing. She refers for the plot to truly begin at the 50% mark. I am not impressed by this. The constant miscommunication and the painfully boring first half and the half-hearted romance, I just do not like this book. 2.5 stars. And I finished on January 17th, The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. My first impressions, I saw this on the new books shelf in the YA section of my library. Having heard of the first book and finding out that this is its prequel, oh my god, Jennifer, speak. I decided to check it out and read it. While reading, this is my first LGBT book of the year. And also my first one set in this kind of genre before, so it's a very new experience. I'm a fan of the many differing perspectives. I'm not a fan of the way this book is set up. However, that's just me loving the chapter format, which wouldn't have worked well with this sort of book. The different parts were like chapters themselves in the role that they play in actually structuring the book. And this is a spoiler alert, so skip ahead. After reading, I absolutely hoped and prayed that the author was lying and Valentino would not die at the end. I was pleased that Frankie got what he deserved, but my heart is broken over Valentino and the romance with Orion. Overall, I rated this 4 stars and also called it a good book. I legitimately cried over the ending of this book, so that's how I know that it's legitimately good. I finished Daughter of the Moon Goddess on January 20th by Su Lin Tan, and my first impressions was that I found out Immortal was set in the same world, so I decided to check it out and give it a read, before I found out Immortal is a standalone and not part of the series. Oops. While reading, the first 60 to 70% of the book I was not intrigued or very interested by what was going on. Everything I did enjoy was quickly skipped over. I was mostly reading out of obligation and boredom. Jing Yin's personality was very superficial. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. For the first 60 to 70% of the book. For the last 40 to 30%, Tan really stepped it up. I was actually invested and shocked by the twist. And dragons! There were dragons, guys! I really did like some of the plot points that were glazed over: the governor, the monster fighting, training, etc. And could have used some extra time on them. After reading, I am neither impressed or disappointed in the book. I feel as if I absorbed a good amount of Chinese legend, and that's always a good feeling. I definitely don't regret spending my time reading this book. The plot is definitely a slow burn, so keep that in mind, and keep an eye out for certain hits. Now, something I did not discuss in my review was that I had noticed a pattern in how Su Lin Tan writes. She prefers for the plot to start at the 50% mark, which is fine for some people, but it isn't fine for me, so her books were definitely not made for me in mind. So if you prefer for your books to begin around halfway, like the plot to begin around halfway, I recommend Su Lin Tan's writing. I finished A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin on January 22nd. My first impressions is that I picked it up because I've seen the show and figured why not. I have an idea on what to expect, but I'm not entirely sure either. While reading, I have watched the first season of the show at least twice, probably 3 times, so I knew what I was getting into with this book. Was it all fun? Was it fun to read all of the differing perspectives and learn things not in the show? Yes, because I'm a sucker for detail. But Martin has a habit of rambling, and there's only so much detail I can stand in a book. Martin's eye for detail is amazing until you get to chapters like 61, which I had to skip because it's so visceral. After reading, I decided that this was not worth 34 hours of my time. It was nice to get these details left out of the show, but I could have read 3 articles about missing details and saved myself the bother. The book and its series is just too long-winded for me to care or to want to continue reading the rest. I rated this book 2 stars, and the joke's on me because I am going to finish the rest of the series, so haha, joke's on me. Now, Crooked Kingdom. I finished this yesterday. My first impressions was that I immediately put a hold on this book after reading Six of Crows, and I have extreme faith in I can't pronounce her first name. Bardugo won't let me down on this. While reading, the author does multiple POVs very well. It never seems boring, repetitive, or a waste of words. She makes each chapter count. Even with following the formula for heist-related media, if the plan is discussed with detail, it will fail. If it isn't, it will succeed. You can never be quite right with Bardugo. The differing POVs allows for so many details and little moments to slip through. The fact that we so rarely get to see into Kaz's head makes it so much better when we do. And the ending. The ending! It was so good, every bit as satisfying as it is open-ended. After reading, I have never been so sad to finish a book in my life. The Six of Crows duology is perfection in its prose, characterization, and plot. I am saddened to say my second favorite book series has been beaten out, though I'm not sad to say it is by this duology. Good book. Crooked Kingdom was the first book that I have rated 5 stars for this year. I also finished A New Moon today. My first impressions was that it was the second book in the series. I've seen the movies, but it's been a hot minute. I was pleasantly surprised by this book and the fact that it wasn't hot garbage, so let's see how this one goes. While reading, Jacob definitely made this book 10 times more enjoyable and readable. I won't fault Bella for her reaction because I honestly just want to give her a hug after that Edward bullshit. I was surprised by how unfaithfully the movie was adapted. I enjoyed reading this more than Twilight and genuinely enjoyed reading the banter between Bella and Jacob. After reading, this book was so unremarkable that I'm struggling to remember all that happened outside of major plot points. My reaction can be summarized into, ugh, Edward, Wet Blanket Cullen is back. I have no interest in finishing the rest of the series because if the movies fell off bad, I don't want to witness the rest of the books. And I rated New Moon by Stephenie Meyer 3 stars. And that is my January wrap-up for this month. And I'm excited to see what books I will be reading in the second month of the year. So let's all keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.